to the emergency station.
Howdy, Disco citizens. I am Julia Marchese.
And I'm Teri Gamble.
And welcome to Horror X, a collaboration between the George Romero Foundation and our podcast, Horror Movie Survival Guide.
Horror X explores the femmes who help make fright films fantasticorical and palavers with them about their experiences in film and horror.
And today's guest has over 200 credits to her name and has starred in some of the most iconic films of the last 40 years, including Donnie Darko, The Dark Half, Child's Play 2, and Flatliners.
And formatively to me personally, Tu Wong Fu. Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. Oh my gosh.
We know she has a million amazing stories, so we can't get ready to dig in, everybody. Welcome, Miss Beth Grant.
Well, before we started, I said, and I see it now, I'm looking at these two beautiful women in front of me, and I just love that you're proactive and that you've created this wonderful show. And, you know, I did work with George Romero, and he is an angel, was an angel. He's one of my favorite human beings and, of course, directors, but just as a human being, such a kind, sweet, benevolent soul. So I just think this would tickle him good. He would love it.
Yes, we are so excited to get into your Romero stories, but let's cast our minds back, if we will, to the beginning.
Yes.
How did you start acting and getting into this whole crazy business?
Oh, well, I had a Southern Belle mama that wanted to be a movie star.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so before I knew what a movie star was, I started telling people I wanted to be one. And not an actor, not an artist, a movie star.
Yes.
Yeah, but she
would
was that dream.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing. Of course, somewhere along the way, I had to learn a work ethic. I had to learn how to do it. But yeah, she would teach me songs. I would sing for my uncle. Oh, where have you been, Billy boy, Billy boy?
Gosh.
Oh, where? He was back from the Navy, and he was this big, good-looking all-American football player. And he's listening, and he's clapping, and all the relatives are clapping. I mean, you know,
For
attention.
the life of the party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I heard Meryl Streep say that once, that
Mhm.
all of us, hopefully, when we're children, we do get attention and we get encouragement to show off and do our thing. And some of us, though, really like it. You know?
I don't know what you mean.
Getting dressed
I don't know
up.
what you mean.
Yeah, one of my favorite actors in the world, Miss Teri. Now, Julia, are you an actor too? I don't know you.
I am, yes.
I got to discover
Yes.
your work.
I am an actor. I am a filmmaker. Teri and I met in 1999. We were living in England together, studying theater.
We met on the airplane on our way, Beth, to go study theater in England.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
We've done Shakespeare, we've done Beckett, we've done everything together. We've known each other for forever now. And so that's how we met, was because of our love of acting and theater. And obviously we both love film so much. So that's how we ended up having a podcast together later and now leading us here.
Well, it's just wonderful. It brings a tear to my eye, honestly. I mean, I think, you know, women's friendships can be just your lifeline and for your whole life. I mean, my best
Absolutely.
friend, we've been friends for, 45 years or something. And I haven't seen her in 20, but we still talk on the phone every week. It's always 2 hours. I tell her everything, and it's everything to me, my women friends. So good for you.
Thank you. And we love women supporting women. So this is, we've always been a fan, but this is a really interesting opportunity to kind of focus on the horror work, which is, you've done everything. But okay, so you have a Southern mama, want you to be a movie star, but
Pushing
then
me
how does
along.
actually...
I wasn't exactly appreciated by the public or the local theater groups or anything like that, though. And Mama would take me to these auditions, but I never got the parts. And then in high school, I did have a drama teacher. Everybody talks about, that one person. And even though I only had her for 2 years, she did believe in me some crazy way. She saw a spark or something, and she encouraged me to audition for a school for gifted and talented students in the summertime. It was a called the Governor's School in North Carolina. And it was a 6-week program. And miraculously, I got in because I really didn't know what I was doing. But I listened to a Dame Judith Anderson long playing vinyl album.
Oh my gosh, yes.
As You Like It. I just did every intonation. I just absolutely mimicked the things you're never supposed to do for the Shakespeare.
And that's how you learn sometimes at that point.
Well, I mean, you do learn the rhythms, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she knew her Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a terrible teacher. But anyway, so I got in there, and then that was the first professional training I ever had. And at the end of the 6 weeks, they sat us all down one by one and, sort of evaluated how we did for the 6 weeks. And the head of the department said to me, well, you're not a natural, but you work hard. And if you keep working, we think you can make it.
That's honestly the best
it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but it did give me that work ethic. Like I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I got to get to work. And so I have always been a very hard worker. And in college, again, didn't get the parts in the main stage. Tried. Oh, my Lord, I tried. But then finally, my senior year, they did a world premiere of a Romulus Linney play. You may know Laura Linney's dad, a wonderful playwright. And it was about Appalachia, and with my big square jaw and my angular features. So it was about Pentecostal snake handlers.
Oh.
And we used real snakes.
Oh.
I know, but I wanted it bad. Yeah. So I took that snake, I did it, put it on my head. And it was a real opportunity because Romulus was well respected in New York, and his agent was a big agent. And I went to New York, and I still wasn't getting arrested, but I don't know who that little girl was. I look back, I optioned the play and produced it off Broadway.
Wow.
Nobody else was hiring me.
Audacity, though, because you just don't, it's the audacity of just not even knowing, just being like, I'm just going to do a thing and make it happen. That's amazing.
Well, back then, you really didn't do that. I mean,
No.
maybe Warren Beatty, but,
Right.
but people like me didn't do that. I don't know where I got that audacity.
But it worked, right? I mean, tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it got me, at least I did it. It wasn't a hit, but it wasn't horrible. And then came out to LA and so on and so forth. But but that was
so on and so forth. Let's this is what we're here for. We're for transition.
Well, I also had a theater company in New York, short-lived, but I had done Julius Caesar at I don't know if you know Baltimore, but there's a theater, wonderful regional theater called Center Stage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was downtown Baltimore, East North Avenue. And I mean, I was struggling. I couldn't pay the rent, all those stories. There were times I was so poor. I mean, I ate white rice, nothing but white rice for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks, long time. I was really sick of that white rice, but I could afford it. Hot water, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I had my little money for the subway so I could get to work, and finally got that check, and then I could buy some food. And I remember going to I was a waitress, and I wasn't good. And I spilled stuff and talked back to the boss or whatever. I wasn't being ugly, but it sounded, whatever I was given an
Just
excuse.
going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just true. And I got fired. And I didn't even have subway money to go home. So the sweet hostess gave me $1, so I could get on the subway and go home. So, I mean, rough days in New York, desperation to make it. I think desperation is a good motivator.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'll make you work pretty
look
hard.
at a lot of people, all of us, when you're just like, there's something to that energy that somehow we survive, and we just keep going and going and going until hopefully we get a little break here, and then that leads to another little break. And but anyway, so I did that, had the theater company, I directed a couple of shows with my theater company. And
how did you like directing?
I loved it. I mean, honestly, I've written a script that called The New York Way, and in it is my fantasy of what could have happened, because I was hired as a director in a strange way. I auditioned for this show, and as I was auditioning, they asked me to, have a seat and watch some of the other people audition. And I thought, oh my God, I am so bad that they, out of the kindness of their hearts, are letting me watch.
Giving you a free acting class.
So I watched and I'm sitting there all prim and proper. And then they say to me, could you show her a few dance steps? And I said, okay, and I knew a couple of little things. So I showed her. So next person came in. And then after a while, I had to go. I mean, I was there an hour or so. And I said, I'm not sure what you're considering me for, but whatever it is, I would love to do it. And I didn't have a phone. The phone company was on strike. I said, but, you can send me a postcard, whatever, you want to do. So sure enough, I got a postcard. And somehow I called them and they said, well, I guess we want you to direct. And what? I mean, what? And I didn't realize, later I realized I had put everything I'd ever done in my life on my resume. I had a 3-page resume.
Oh my
and
gosh.
one of them was children's theater. I had directed a children's theater in college for 2 summers. And so this was a children's theater piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it came from. But I didn't have a clue. And it was terrible, terrible, terrible show. It was a review and I did the best I could, but the review, I don't know if it was the Times. Gosh, I don't remember who wrote it, but the quote was, I'll never forget the quote was, they have managed to insult every ethnic group known to man.
Oh, no.
And here I am from the South, from a progressive family that has taken pride in their being progressive family, not like all those other people. And then that's my first review. And I'm like, oh my God. So my directing career did not take off. But, it was a good experience. And I'm still friends with, in fact, my writing partner is someone that I met while I was doing that show. She was in the show.
Oh, wow.
So we're still friends. I mean, that was 1972.
I'm glad y'all survived it.
That's 51 years. 51 years.
Yeah.
51 years. So, then we came out here. I wrote these are things I don't talk about very much, but I wrote a review with Judy, a comedy review for the Improv.
Oh, nice.
And that was when it first opened over on Melrose.
Oh, wow.
And they gave us Monday night to do it. And it went very well, but I was very naive. I was expecting to get discovered. Even though I had worked so hard on every single thing I'd ever done, I thought that the secret to success was having the right person see it.
Right.
And then you would be a star.
Right.
And so it took a long time before that got in my noggin. But that governor's school, too, I'm still friends with an actress. You may know this actress, Berlinda Talbert. She was Jenny on the Jeffersons.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still dear friends. And another actor that went to governor's school, he's passed away. That's why I had a little pause there. I was just thinking, so sad that he died. But anyway, she and I were together and hanging out, and then he came to town and we did Death of Bessie Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Edward Albee played.
Yeah.
And so we did that and then I got a strange I worked in the Jimmy Carter campaign for president.
Okay. Oh,
I got a job and I worked my way up and I became a celebrity coordinator.
Oh.
And with luck, I had a couple of friends that were like Hal Linden. I used to babysit for Hal Linden. Do you know Hal Linden, the singer? And he had been on the Rothschilds on Broadway, and he had a series called Barney Miller, big TV star at that moment. And I babysat for him. So I got him to say he would do some stuff for Carter. And then, I don't know, I got one here and one there, and I'd make calls and talk to people's agents. And then I knew Cher's assistant through someone. And so she got to Cher, because Cher on her show, Sonny and Cher show, every week was talking about Jimmy Carter, and they were arguing because he was a Republican, she was a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll be darned if she didn't get on the phone. And she said, why the hell hasn't anybody called me?
Mm.
And I said, can I tell you the truth? And she said, yes. I said, we're a mess. And we need you, because we were everybody was just scrambling It was a
Yeah.
very kind of innocent campaign, not these sophisticated, social media or commercial. I mean, people didn't have that much money in their campaigns, and it just
No.
wasn't sophisticated. I'll give you an example with Jimmy Carter, what a good man he is. My cousin was friends with him. He had been his first driver. So that was sort of one of my connections to get in the door in the first place. But there was a debate. And after the debate, the local radio station, one of the local radio stations, was going to take a poll of who won the debate. And so we had planned, all of us were going to get on the phone and call and say, well, Jimmy Carter won. And he sent out, no one. We want an honest poll.
Oh.
And we don't want it. I mean, can you imagine that today?
No.
It's a different world. This was
Yeah.
1976.
Mhm.
So the world has changed so much. But
A
what
lot.
a good human being. And has he proven his worth over time?
Yeah.
He's the real deal. So, I did that. And so that gave me some connections. And I met the people that were like head of Universal. There was a man named Lou Wasserman, who was a very famous agent and then the head of Universal. And I called him up after the campaign. I had done this one really big event. It was the last stop on the campaign. And somehow we had gotten Dionne Warwick. Cher brought oh gosh, who all did she bring? I was just trying. Well, a lot of these people aren't stars anymore, but Gabe Kaplan, Howland, then came
Welcome back,
Shirley
Robert.
MacLaine, Diana Ross. Maybe that's
yes.
who Cher brought. I think Cher brought Diana Ross. I mean, this bus.
Yeah.
And I was, again, so dumb, so naive. I knew I needed to make some food refreshments for them. So I made pimento cheese sandwiches
Okay.
and I mean, and like Pepsis. I mean, just so. But they ate them. They were
That's
good.
what I would want, right? Like a little down home fun.
Right.
When they had all the big officials like Lou Wasserman and these people on stage with Jimmy Carter, and then here comes our bus, and down they come and on the stage, and they see star after star after star, and I thought, I need to call them Monday morning, So
Yeah.
I called them and I said, I would really love to, talk to you about a job. And they didn't pay me, but they allowed me to be trained. And so I was assigned to a television show. And so I would work for free from 9 to 5. And then I would take the bus over at Cahuenga Pass, and I would take the bus into Hollywood, where I worked at this film school as a nighttime registrar. And I met people and I learned about film. And Robert Wagner, who was a star of Switch, he was the first person that I ever looped. I was sitting there typing, and they said, "Oh, RJ's here. Would you take him over and loop his lines?" And I went, "Oh, yes, certainly." And I walked him over to the little looping stage, and I gave him his script. I knew what to do because I'd seen others do it, and gave it to the engineer. And
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if he was any good or not. I said, "Great, wonderful, fine." So I learned a lot. And I could go on the set and watch him shoot. I got to do the notes for the effects runs. I learned about film on that show. And I wish I could say, then they made me an executive or gave me. Nope, nothing happened. But I tried, and I was naive. And then I worked at Fox. I was an assistant. Now he did pay me $25 a week,
Okay.
covered my gas,
Woo.
and I had my own office. And so I was just always willing to work for free or work very cheap just to get in the door. And then this film school I went to, I got to know Tony Bill, and who produced The Sting and was one of the producers of Taxi Driver and so on. And I went to Tony, and we started doing fundraisers for the school, and then got to know him as a friend and met other people through him, just one tiny step at a time. Finally, that came out of that producing gig, or the producer training thing. The breakdown services. Well,
Yes.
how actors cheat and get them even though we're not supposed to. And
I
back
don't know
then
what
it
you're
was
talking
all
about. I've never seen one.
yeah. And we used to get them. They were paper. We would only get them once a week, and we would meet at somebody's house, and we would go through. So I'm going through, and I see, little redneck waitress role, on a show being produced by one of the producers that I had worked with at Universal. And I called the office and he got on the phone and I said, John, can I audition for the part of the waitress? And he said, how quickly can you get here? We just had the auditions. I said, 5 minutes. I'll be there. He said, okay. So I had to go. Had on jeans and a t-shirt, but kind of perfect. Shot over the hill, went in there, auditioned. They had already cast it, I found out, or they had decided. They hadn't told her. Mm-hmm. And the director, a guy named Bruce Bilson, said to John, but, he said, first of all, she's got a Southern accent. And he said, she's a diner waitress in America. That's fine. And he said, well, what about the other girl? That's okay. We'll give her something else. So I got that part. And that was the pilot of BJ and the Bear. You might have heard of BJ and the Bear.
Oh my gosh. No, my best friend who says hello, you've never met him, but he's a huge fan. But his name is Benjamin Joseph because his mom named him after
Greg Evigan. Oh, that's crazy.
Isn't that funny? So
it is. Well, you tell him I was in that pilot.
Yes.
And I did one or two more episodes of that, but then nothing. And then when I finally I tell you, I had a very spiritual experience. I was 33 and I was working in production. I was working for a company called George Slaughter Productions. They did Laugh In. We had a show called Real People, you might have heard of, with Fred Willard. And, it was a terrific little reality show. Actually, it was one of the first reality shows. And I started out just in the mail room. Again, I'm when you say clueless, look in the dictionary, it'll say Beth Grant. But I went to the Christmas party there, and there was a guy on the show named John Barber, and I was talking up a storm about promotion, things I'd learned from the Jimmy Carter campaign. And I said, you need to promote this like a local show, like with local thing, whatever I was saying, because they were shooting all over the country and in different locations. So he liked the ideas. I didn't have a clue. And after Christmas, I'm working in the mailroom one night and I get a call from the executive producer, George Slaughter, and he said, I hear you've got some ideas about promoting the show. And I said, oh, yes, I do. He said, well, come on over. So I crossed the street from the mailroom into his office and I told him these ideas and he liked it and he hired me to create a department.
Wow.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. And I started calling people and asking questions and, trying to figure out, well, how do you get to the local people? Well, guess what? You pick up the phone and you call the NBC station in Philadelphia, or you call the NBC station. So eventually, then I wrote, produced, directed commercials for the show, personalized promos. I created events all across the country. We had a cross-country train special, all these crazy, crazy things. And just learned so much. Oh, and so then this is where I was going to get to. So we had an event at Fox. It was just before the Olympics. So it was 1983. Mm-hmm. And it was an event showing the documentary films of the Olympic athletes. Mm-hmm. There was a guy named Bud Greenspan. He and his wife used to make these documentaries. So they were showing highlights from all these years of doing this. And you might remember this runner. There was I don't know if I can tell this without crying, but there was a long distance runner. I don't remember the country he was from. I want to say Zimbabwe, but he was the one that was chosen to get the medal. They thought he would get it. Mm-hmm. And they followed him in training. And then came the Olympics. And they had no sooner started the race and he pulled his Achilles tendon.
Oh, no.
But
that's crushing.
Did he quit? No, he did not. He walked, limped that 26 plus miles, long distance runner, didn't get into the stadium for 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And he walked into that stadium limping, and you can imagine. Mm-hmm. Everybody was on their feet.
Yeah.
Cheering. He won. He didn't win, but he
won.
Finished the race. Mm-hmm. And so I started crying. It always moves me. I've looked at it over the years. Every once in a while, I'll Google, But I got back. I looked at my crew who was there shooting stuff, and I said, I got to go back to the office. I was just too emotional. So I went back to the office, and my little assistant was there, and I'm crying by then. I'm just sobbing. And she said, "Is there anything I can do?" And I said, "No, I got to go home." So I went home, and I called my dear friend, Karen Grassley, the mom on Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, yeah.
She's my dear friend. And I called her up, and she answered the phone. And I said, "Karen, I can't not act anymore."
Oh,
And she said, "Well, it's about time." And she said, "And you need to get into an acting class, and you need to." So I did.
that was
my
your
friend,
race. That's your,
that's
right?
my race.
Yeah.
I just needed to finish.
Don't give
I didn't
up.
need to win. I didn't have to get an Oscar. I didn't have to be a movie star. I just
Keep
had
going.
to do it. I
Mhm.
just had to do it. And so anyway, I got into class, and my teacher, Milton Gonzalez, I was still trying to be Marilyn Monroe. And he said, "Why do you keep trying to be a Rolex watch when you're the salt of the earth? And who are you to look down your nose at Colleen Dewhurst and named up?" I don't. Yes, you do. You don't think their parts are good enough for you. And I said, "Oh, I do." So he changed my life, And he said, "Look for those little roles, those little bitty roles, those gems.
Yep.
And if you get an audition for a lead, you could do that audition, but then say, 'Can I try that other little part?'" And I've been doing that now for 45 years.
Yeah. That's it. That's the bread and butter. Dreams into action, baby. I read that book, Milton's book.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's exactly it. You got to find what you're good at. Find your bread and butter and go there.
And then you can do other stuff.
Yeah.
I've done some leads, not a lot, but I've had a few. I did, Octavia Spencer and I did a movie of a play we had done together called Blues for Willa Dean.
Mhm.
The play was called Trials and Tribulations of a Trailer Trash Housewife.
Yes.
And guess who that was? But but it's not really a comedy. It's about domestic violence. So that's why they changed the title for the movie. But,
Right.
that was a lead. And, I consider Kitty Farmer and Donnie Darko a lead. And so
It is.
It is.
I've done, and then Mayfair Witches. I think Carlotta's a lead, supporting
It is.
lead.
It's such a good show.
She's a great character. Oh, and I love doing that show. Oh, that was, when my agent called me about that, I was salivating to do that role in the middle of the pandemic. I have been working during the pandemic, but I'm a certain age, and I have, I'm immune compromised and all of that. So everything I've done has been very selective.
Mhm.
But when they called about Mayfair Witches, I was like, yes, get me that, please, get me that. And it lived up to my expectations and beyond. I loved all of those people. I just had the greatest time. It was wonderful.
Who are some of your favorite collaborators or creators that you've worked with?
Well, director-wise, Barry Sonnenfeld, who did Men in Black and, so many other things. I did a television series called Maximum Bob, which was based on Elmore Leonard novels.
Nice.
And it was before Justified. It was sort of like I was ahead of its time, honestly. And I played a swamp woman, Inez Crow, part of the Crow family. And I was married to my stepbrother. And I had
How delicious is that, though?
it was delicious. It was so much fun. And I already had found a place to live in Miami. I was ready to go, but then we got canceled. So 7 episodes we did, but that was a great experience. So anyway, I love Barry Sonnenfeld.
Mhm.
Think about Barry Sonnenfeld. There was a shot of one of my sons who had just escaped from prison, and he's on one of those boats in the swamp, and he's pulling up to a dock, and he had this big speech. So he missed the dock, and when he got off, he fell in the water.
Nice.
And they started to cut, and Barry said, no, keep going. And so it's so brilliant because this crazy lunatic gets in the water and never skips a beat, kept talking the whole way to shore.
Oh, that's
So
priceless.
that's a good director. Todd Holland, I did Malcolm in the Middle with. He did that too. The first episode I did, I have this thing where with Jane Kasmerick's character, I'm taking her brownies that she brought and saying, oh, we have children here that are allergic. And I go over, take them from her, and toss them in the trash can. First take, they popped right out. So without my knowing it, Todd went to the prop guy and said, really smash them in there so she has a hard time getting them out. I didn't know that. So I go over and I'm banging them. They're not coming out. They're banging, banging, banging. So I took my hand and I just dug in there and I stretched like that. And Jane almost lost it. I mean, you could see her face going. And when he called cut, I mean, you can imagine that's everybody broke up. But he was smart. He let me go. Because as long as they don't call cut, you got to keep going, right?
Keep it going. That's where the magic is, when those real things happen.
Yeah, right in the beginning of the take, right at the end of the take.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I got a lot of this. So I like that. I like a guy that died recently, Peter Werner, who directed me, and one of my first big parts was a movie called The Image with Albert Finney. And Marsha Mason and Kathy Baker, and oh my God, it was Spalding Gray.
Wow.
And a newcomer, his first big movie, Brad Pitt. So
just a little actor.
Just a skinny little guy smoking a cigarette. I mean, he was asking me all kinds of questions about the business.
Of course.
I just thought, Brad Pitt. And I didn't know it was Brad Pitt for a long time. One time I was cutting my reel and I went, wait a minute. Go back. Holy cow, that kid was Brad Pitt.
Isn't that funny?
Very funny. But Peter was great. He did the same thing. He had wanted me to really hate Albert Finney. And of course, I adored Albert Finney.
How can you not?
How could you not? One of the greatest actors that ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was supposed to really tell him off. And I think there was a part of me going, And so Peter came over and whispered to me, he said, you really hate this guy. He's ruined your life. He did this, he did that. Okay, got it. So we did another tape. It's better. But he didn't call cut. Same kind of thing. And so Albert, not making a comment, he just sort of crossed his arms and looked down at his feet. He wouldn't make it, but I went nuts. And I said, you look at me when I'm talking to you. Don't you look down. You look at me. And I went for it. And that little piece, which was an accident, and that was the director, Peter, became like a centerpiece in the film. They kept showing it over and over in the newsroom. And this, you look at me. Accidents, not calling cut. So I love Peter Werner. I love Ridley Scott. Naturally, Ridley Scott is so organized. He had a rehearsal as trying to think who all was in my scene. Well, Nick Cage and Alison Lohman, and then that day Sam. Oh my God, I love this guy. I've worked with him twice.
Julia's favorite, Sam Rockwell. She's
Sam Rockwell, and I played his mom. Oh yeah. Oh, he's sweet.
Very love him.
Very good taste.
In love.
Very good taste. And guess who his best friend is? Chris Messina. I mean, you think of the two of those guys there.
That's for me.
My God.
You can have Sam, I'll take Chris. Oh my
God. Well, Sam, anyway, we were at this rehearsal and he showed us diagrams. This is where the camera's going to be. This is the. So you knew what was happening. You get to the set and you know what he's doing. And he said, if you get any ideas, just let me know. And indeed I did. As a matter of fact, I went over and he shot my idea. The Coen brothers not only give you, tell you what you're going to do, they give you the storyboards. You get your sides on top and then you get the whole storyboard. So you know when you're in close up, extreme close up, background.
That's a gift.
So helpful.
That's such a gift because that's so rare. You don't usually, you're kind of lost in the dark a little bit about what the visual stories.
They're the only two, Ridley Scott and Coen brothers. So maybe some people should think about that.
What's the advice here for future directors?
Well, just like for visual learners too, because I feel like sometimes we were just talking about that earlier. We have found out a few friends there's people who can't visualize. They can't, see a picture in their head. They also have the inner dialogue. So translating that or something like that just to show them would actually be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And my husband's like that. He's not visual. I'm very visual. I can picture colors. I can picture things. He has to map it out, do the measurements, put it.
Yeah.
It's helpful to me too, mind you. I like it when he does it, but it's, I already have kind of seen it in my mind's eye. So everybody's different that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Random
So I
question.
love them. I love Barry Levinson, Rain Man, loved him.
Yes.
And you're going to think I'm just saying it, but I promise you, George Romero. Well, every time I hear
let's get into that. Let's get into that because that's where we want to go. We want to hear about what was that experience like? What was it like when you first met him? How did you get involved? Let's hear that.
Oh, he was so from the very first. I arrived and then they took me over to where they were having lunch. And as soon as he saw me, he came over and sat with me. And he had this sweet manner about him. I'm sure other people have told you that just a kind man. You could just see his heart, tall guy, at least he seemed tall to me, and just easygoing. And then when we were shooting, we'd do a take and then he'd go, like, how you feel? And if I wanted to do it again, he would. And if not, so I've always had a very soft spot in my heart for him. And of course, we shot, in Pittsburgh and outside. And I drove over to West Virginia. The funny thing to me about West Virginia, it was during the fall and it was so gorgeous. I had never seen leaves like that in my life. I took so many pictures and my husband got the pictures back and he said, why did you take so many of the same picture? Because of course, leaves can look a lot alike in a photo. But, yeah, just I was trying to think if there's anything else. He was.
Do you
That's the
remember
main
when you
thing I
got
have
the
to.
call to audition for Romero? And
Oh yeah, I was
seen his
Leslie Dennis. I remember the casting director, and I had done Rain Man, and I think that's where she got the idea for me to play the mom. And yeah, I was very comfortable with my audition, and gosh, I can't remember. I think she sent it to him. He wasn't there at the audition, so she sent him the tape. And back then they had to probably physically send the VHS.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a funny thing. Talk about auditioning on tape with Coen Brothers with No Country for Old Men. I had auditioned. I liked them. I felt good. I thought I had it. I hadn't heard. Been a couple months. Then I get a call on a Thursday and they want me to come back on a Saturday because they want to put me on tape. Well, I couldn't do it. I had promised my daughter, I had signed up for Gina Davis has this organization, Go Girls Go and stuff. They do all the sport, raise money for women athletes and so on. And so there was a celebrity golf tournament. I don't even play golf and I'm not even really a celebrity, but they invited me to come. So I brought So Mary and her friend Mary was an all-star goalie. So Mary and her soccer friend, they're going to have the gold medal soccer players at this thing. So they had talked about it for weeks and they had a car picking us up and taking us to wherever it was. And there's no way that I could say, Mary, I'm so sorry. I have to go to an audition. It couldn't happen.
No.
So Michael said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll tape it. And this was before self-tapes. People didn't do that. Michael taped. Mary read the lines off camera. She was, I guess, 11.
Oh my God.
Maybe 12. She read the lines. We did the tape. And Michael was so nervous about this tape that he didn't even send it to my agent. He took it to Paramount, got in on the lot, put it on their desk. He did not want to take any chances with anybody else delivering that tape. And then they called Monday morning and I got it. And so, sometimes you follow your heart and you do what you have to do.
You do the right thing, right?
And it works out.
What role do you get recognized for the most?
Let's see, the most. A lot of depends on what's airing at the moment, I think. Because when Mindy Project was on, it was definitely Mindy Project everywhere I went. It was crazy. I couldn't go to the mall. I was in London and it was Mindy Project of all the things I've done. And but often I would say Donnie Darko for sure.
Which,
Child's Play 2.
I love Donnie Darko so much that I watched it so much my roommates hid it from me. Like, you can't watch this anymore. It's getting obsessive. And I was like, what I want to watch it again.
It is a masterpiece. It just is. I just, there's just no other way to describe it. I did some kind of Zoom with Richard Kelly recently. I've forgotten what it was for.
Speaking of
for
nice guys.
Angel, just an angel. And he's actually living part-time in Richmond, Virginia now, because I guess all these people have poured billions of dollars into the university, and there's all this film equipment, and they're looking for people like him, who have ties to the local community to develop projects. So he's there part of the time and here part of the time. But yeah, it was great to see him. Even if it was on Zoom, it was great to see him. And he's wonderful. So yeah, I think that I was just trying to think and The Office is apparently has a huge following.
It's cool.
I do get recognized for that. Sometimes Rain Man, occasionally Little Miss Sunshine, sometimes.
Always. I know. Yeah, that's
Oh, I had a reunion with those kids. I was the mother of 6 kids, and I was shooting in Oklahoma. And I told the producer, I said, if I'm only like 45 minutes away from where we shot Rain Man. And so he got the local news, and we got the kids together, and the mom and the dad. They were a family of 8. I had 6 in the movie, but the oldest and the youngest weren't in the movie. Mm-hmm. And I got to see them all grown up. And they had used their residuals and saved them and invested in a business, and very successful.
Oh, that's great. You don't hear those kind of like success stories often. That's great.
Yeah, it was wonderful. They told me something. I don't remember saying this because it was only my second movie, and it certainly was my first big movie. And but they said, I whispered to him, make sure you say something on camera, then you'll get residuals.
Oh, she's so smart.
No, I don't know how I knew that, but anyway, they said they didn't all get residuals because 2 of them were too shy. But they shared it. They shared it with all the kids, and they've all built houses in the same community, and they're just as close as could be. They have an airplane. I mean,
okay, they did real well.
Yeah. Tu Wong Fu was funny because we shot in Lincoln, Nebraska, but it was a little bitty town, an hour away, and it was a kind of a sad little community. They really, really poor families. And the kids, we went in and we took over the town. We built 2 buildings, and we cleaned out their houses. And, they went into another world with being with us, and they got to eat good food every day. And when we got there, they were these skinny little kids. And when we left, they were all round and healthy and happy. And we would eat a lot of steak because it was Nebraska. I'm a vegan now, but I wasn't then. They would have steak at breakfast, steak at lunch, and you'd see them over there just digging into that steak. And I mean, sometimes, film communities can really be of service. And I like to think that maybe the improvements that we made to their little town, that they were able to maintain that, and we rescued dogs. And, when we were doing Speed, I always say the movie, not the drug. We rescued dogs on that. We would see a stray dog on the side of we were on the freeway a lot. And somebody would take one home, and the next day would see another dog, take that one home, so we do good things.
But this is the good stuff, right? This is the behind the scenes stuff that you don't get to learn about when you're just watching the movie. So
community spirit, right? Exactly. I love that.
So the question is, when you're on a set, can you tell if the film will be successful or not from the feeling on set, or are you sometimes surprised by what you feel like you gave, and then you see it on screen, you go, oh, it's different?
Well, I've had both happen. I will say that when I got the sides to Rain Man, I knew it was going to go all the way. I just did. I knew it was going to win every Oscar you could win. I knew, and I even had the roles mixed up. I thought Tom Cruise was playing the brother, and that Dustin Hoffman was. I didn't even know that, but just reading those sides, I thought, oh boy, we're into something here. You got Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise together. Barry Levinson, one of my favorite filmmakers. I did think it would go all the way. And happily it did.
Yeah. Luckily for those kids.
Yeah, lucky for those kids. And it changed my life. I mean, I couldn't get arrested in film until I did that movie. And then the next year I co-starred in 6 movies. I mean, it was crazy.
Wow.
I mean, not big leads, but good, nice roles.
No, working actor. This is what we all strive for,
Just
right?
Yeah, working actors. That's
yes.
right. Yeah.
No, I used to have the movie star thing too. I have a Southern grandfather who called me his little movie star my whole life. So I feel so acutely with you. Because I had the same words spoken to me, but I just think now, as the years have gone on, I'm just happy to get the next thing and whatever the next thing is.
And you just don't know. And the thing is, we're all one phone call away from a lead in a movie, a regular on a series, all that. We don't know. It is a gambler's profession, I suppose.
Teri Gamble.
I don't like to gamble.
But always a gamble with me.
But if you could go back and tell the Beth who was the not so great waitress where you are now and talk about, everything you've accomplished and all the people that you've worked with, it's really, really incredible. I think when you're in it, you kind of go, oh, yes, yes, yes. But actually stop and look and think about what a wonderful career you've had and talk to so many different people.
It's exhausting. I'm just so grateful. I cannot tell you. And my husband and I have a joke. We say to each other, we'll look at each other every once in a while and say, phew, thank God we got, this far, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because it is scary. It is scary. And I think you don't necessarily have to be desperate, but you have really got to have good work ethic. You've got to be willing to do all the work and never stop. And even the big stars have to keep working. Mm-hmm. No one gets to sail. I speaking of Brad Pitt, I remember once, I've forgotten the book, but he was in competition for the rights to a book and didn't get it. I mean, can you imagine Brad Pitt not getting the rights to anything he wants?
Yeah.
But and then they have to sell to the studios, and the studios might say yes, and then they don't make it, or then they don't approve the cast that they want, or they don't approve the director that they want. No one has an easy street. It's a business. It really is.
Yeah.
And when people say to me, oh, I don't like the business part, and I think, well, you gotta do something else. There's no business part, art part. It's one thing. So I just don't think people should, I was very deluded about, I'll get discovered, but it took a while for me to get that. Well, that long distance runner, I saw what he did and I went,
Yeah, there's the inside look at Hollywood and the outside look at Hollywood and how they're all totally different. But this is why it's so fascinating, especially with somebody who's seen it change, right? I'm sure you've seen the industry change throughout the years. And I think that that's really something that great now that we are being able to have more conversations about women directors, women actors. You've done all of these things. Do you think that you will direct again?
I would love to. I have this project I was talking about called The New York Way that, I have a vision for it. I know exactly how I want to direct it. I know, but I just don't, honestly, I don't know. Would they let me, number one? And if they did, they would certainly have to, surround me with a lot of good people who would then listen to me. Sure. And I've seen great established women directors, not be listened to on the set, or the production manager comes over and is looking at his watch right in front of the whole cast. And maybe not as much now, like on Mayfair Witches, I think those women directors were really supported. And I think they were very happy. And I think, so there are exceptions. And they were determined on that one, that they were going to have women. On Mindy Project, they made sure to have as many women directors as possible. And I felt that they were supported. But
Dollface.
Look at all those women directors.
Phenomenal. The showrunner there, everybody. They were lovely.
Yeah, wonderful showrunners. We had a lot of women on Dollface.
Yeah.
And so it does happen. It does. It is better. It's definitely better than it used to be.
A bit of a jaunt. Let's move it back to the horror just a little bit. What is the scariest horror movie you've ever seen?
That I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it goes way back, and it's not a graphic one. It's something called The Haunting, but it's the first Haunting.
Yeah. He's the best.
Yeah. With Claire Bloom. And
yes.
To this day, I can't watch that movie. I mean, I watch it, but I'm like,
And it's so fabulous because that's the one that leaves it up to your imagination, right? They
leaves it
don't
up to
show
the
you-
imagination. I think that's a lot scarier than
Yep.
showing graphic stuff is just gross and gory, and you know,
We like it, but we get it. We get it's not
Yeah.
for everybody.
I mean, you know, I don't. I mean, there's certain ones I have watched. I obviously watched the ones I was in, and it's
Mhm.
okay. But what I really like are the more psychological. Oh, I know another one. It was a TV movie called The Innocents. And I think they've made a feature out of it, but it was these two ghosts, a ghost of a gardener and a housekeeper that were haunting these kids.
Yes.
You know that story?
Yeah,
What's
it's a movie.
play?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
great. Turn to the Screw, and then they
Turn to the Screw.
to The Innocents with Deborah Carr, and it's fantastic.
It's phenomenal.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are my two favorites. But you know, I don't mind doing violence at all. It's just hard to watch.
Yeah, how much gore have you been covered in? This is the question.
I mean, I haven't done too much, really. I was just trying to think. I mean, Chucky killing me with first the bicycle pump filling my lungs with air and then beat me to death with a yardstick is pretty.
See, you get to check that off the bucket list. You got killed by Chucky. How many people?
And you know what's so funny is seeing it when it's happening, you're lying there and you're being killed. Of course, you've got 7 puppeteers coming at you, you know, with the puppets. And so it's really not scary. My husband also got killed by Chucky. We got to be friends with Don Mancini after, you know, while I was doing Child's Play 2. I just was crazy about that guy. And I love the theme of that one, that it was about listen to children.
Yes.
And I get punished because I don't listen to Andy.
Yeah.
I thought she deserves to die. She doesn't listen. He's trying to tell her. So I like that theme very much. And I had a little button that I wore that you can't really see it in the movie very much, that said, just say no, which was my little, at a certain person that had a drug campaign called Just Say No. So
I recall.
Yeah.
Because those kind of people, I mean, you know, people that don't understand drug addiction, alcoholism, the Just Say No campaign is so ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we grew up in the DARE program, you know, in elementary school, which is exactly what that is, right? And then you go, oh, it's silly.
No, it was silly. So great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disease, and it's something that it's physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. It's, you know, it's not you can't just simplify it like that. So anyway, I had an axe to grind with certain president's wife at that time.
Valid.
Super valid. Well, Beth, this has been so delightful. You are above and beyond one of my favorite people out there, and I'm just so glad we got to
Teri, I
chat today.
believe in you. I'm telling you what, the first time I saw her, and doesn't she transform? I'm sure you probably do the same kind of work. Y'all train together, but I saw her on this hospital thing they were doing, and I said, Mary, I tell you who I like. Who is that? And she said, Mama, you won't believe she is not like that. You won't believe it when you see her. And then I would see her in other characters or as herself. I was like, oh my God, that is a transformational actress. My favorite kind. So I hope we get
people
to
like
do
you.
something.
Exactly. I'm always like, those are the kind of careers, like what you do, just all the different people you've gotten to inhabit and play. That's the fun, right? I've loved dressing up since I was a kid, and I used to perform for my parents too. They
There
would
you
be out
go.
at a party as well. So I totally relate. And I love it. So I'm so grateful for you and grateful for all
I'm
the
grateful for you.
transformations. We have
And
one final question.
and Julia, I'm so glad to meet you.
You.
And do you like to dress up too?
I do.
We love it.
Yeah. we have a good time. So our question that we ask everybody, and we've touched on a little bit, but how has George Romero made an impact on your life?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's an inspiration. And I will say that, I mean, obviously it was a Stephen King novel, The Dark Half, but the fact that it is myth, great myth. That I think the reason horror movies are so popular right now, particularly, is because people need them because of all the violence in the world and all the horror in real life, that we need some place to go to exorcise our demons.
Yeah.
And I think he really understood mythology. And which is one reason he was so kind and loving, because it was storytelling. So every time I think of him, I smile. When he passed away, it was a very sad day for me, and I just keep him in my heart. So I would say it's an inspiration for being a great storyteller, and you can do all kinds of crazy, wacky stuff and still be a nice person.
And it's like the hardest horror directors are normally like the nicest, sweetest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really true.
Just
It's
generally, I
really
think it's because
true.
they have gone through that catharsis of and actually, you know, understanding where humanity can go, and having that empathy, I think, is where it really is the underlying factor for so many of those directors. So
Yeah.
Thank you again, Beth, for this lovely chat. Thank you for joining.
I'm a talker. I hope I didn't talk your ears off. You better check and see if you still have ears.
We gotta.
We could do like hours and hours and hours, you know, because
Yeah.
your stories are incredible.
I still have so many more questions, so I can't wait to chat with you again soon, hopefully real soon. You can listen to our podcast, Horror Movie Survival Guide, out there, audience. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can hear Julia and I take deep dives into different horror films every week and dissect how you can survive and become the final girl.
And don't forget to check out George Romero Foundation, which is dedicated to restoring Romero's work, including seldom seen pieces like The Amusement Park. Please watch it from early in his career, as well as keeping an archive and helping the next generation of young filmmakers.
Hey, that's us. Thank you guys.
Isn't that
Thank you
wonderful?
everyone for watching. Please do feel free to reach out to Julia and myself. We'd love to interact on the interwebs. We will see you again.
Yes, thank you so much, Beth. We will see you next time. Thanks for watching, and hoping your days and nights are fantastic.
Oh, fantastic oracle. Yeah.
Adorable.